This is what collaboration and connections. If you think of connections, collaboration, that's all one and the same. When Mr. Rack and I thank God for Mr. Rack, when we took a ride back in October, one of my initiatives when I ran for mayor was to figure out how could I incentivize and change the culture of housing in Franklin. In another lifetime, I was the CFO for St. Mary Community Action. So I recognize the value and importance of working with nonprofits because I saw what we did in the nonprofit world. Reverend Matthews and I, we worked together for many years with St. Mary Community Action. He was a grant writer and I was the CFO. We were in the Franklin, we put it together for the improvement of all of St. Mary Parish. We built some developments, we built some townhouses, so I saw how with the municipality you can collaboratively work together for the overall good of your community. So once I became mayor, I wanted to start changing that culture and climate of how we do business, for instance, in Franklin, working with the nonprofits, working with Louisiana Housing Corporation. And when Mr. Rack, he said, Gene, we need to, Keith said you need to come see him. I said, well, look, I'm coming to see Keith. The first couple of months in office, I had to kind of get my legs under me, Mayor Vadrina and Mayor Grogan. You know how that goes. And Mayor, so as I continued to put a couple of fires out, and we dealt with some issues, Mr. Rack and I rolled down in October, and we met with Keith, and that's when we started dialoguing about the community connection. I said, look, I'll be the first one to do it, let's go. Because I saw if we bring all of these experts from Louisiana Housing Corporation to come to Franklin, I said, this is a win. And I didn't want to just keep it just for Franklin. So I reached out to Mayor Grogan, he sent some representatives there. Councilman Matthews, he sent some representatives there. I reached out to the the clergy in Franklin. Reverend Randall came, Reverend Guy was there, he works with the city. Reverend Lewis sent some representatives. So we had all of the key stakeholders and the citizens that were at the table for this very first community connection. LAC came in and broke it down on what the possibilities are. When Reverend Williams, Pastor Williams was just saying vision. We have to have vision. If you have that vision and you know that you can make a fundamental change for the overall good of your entire community, I believe in the power of prayer, and I believe that we can fundamentally make a difference. When I think of what Reverend Randall has on the horizon, that is going to come to fruition. There will be some seniors. They haven't had some senior citizens style units in Franklin in over 35 years of St. Jude's Apartments for the elderly. That's over 35, nearly 40 years ago now. So we have not had any developments in Franklin. We have to give people hope, not just false hope, but hope that we can make a difference through these community connections. That's why I was so grateful from that. In the community connection meeting, we started dialoguing. Keith was there giving expert advice on how we could start making changes. Maurice was there giving advice on how we could start connecting the dots, getting groups together, getting citizens together to make a fundamental difference. Then a couple of weeks ago, we had another community style connection for first-time home buyers. It was 75. At one point, we had nearly 100 people in that particular venue talking about first-time home buying. St. Mary Community Action had just recently had a graduation. They had 40 people that graduated in the home buyers. So we had all of those residents, and then we had folks from Patterson that was there, Morgan City. So we had a cross-section of Franklin, because I'm not going to be selfish. Mayor Grogan calls me all the time and gives me advice and bounce stuff off. Mayor, what you think about this, this, and this? Because I think together as a unit, we're strong as one. Because when Patterson grows, Franklin grows, and vice versa. So I want
Right.
what's best for Patterson as well as I know Mayor Grogan wants what's best
Right.
for Franklin, because I think on a collaborative effort, we could do some things collaboratively, because if Patterson has some developments on the horizon in Franklin, and we have some developers that's willing to come into our area, they might be able to knock one development out in Patterson and roll over to Franklin and vice versa, because I think collaboratively we could do this together. In our community, we've done various community needs assessments. I have a blighted property mitigation program that we've installed, and as Mayor Vadrine said, we have some ordinances that we already have on the books to address blight. For so long in Franklin, for instance, blight had been kicked down the road. You know, anytime we start discussing dealing with blight, everyone turns a blind eye but don't want to attack the issue.
Right.
What we've done, we've aggressively moved forward with our blighted housing program. We have some teeth in the ordinance where, you know, we have, you have 30, we've given them 60 days to move forward on letting the administration know what are we going to do with some of the houses that have been deemed non-repairable, or basically, you know, we'll demolish those homes. So we've gotten some very good feedback from the community. I've had a number of residents that have called and say, hey, look, Mayor, I've had someone from California call that grandmother passed away about 10 years ago. They had not been in Franklin in 10 years.
Yep.
So in 10 years, that property has steadily gone down
Yep.
and have devalued. But the property is still, the dirt and the land is not going anywhere. So now they are considering tearing the house down and possibly selling the property. And as we work with LHC, you know, with some adjudicated properties, we plan on getting those properties, turning them back over into market so we can put some new, houses in those particular sites. So it's just a matter of having a plan and a vision, and also for municipalities, the key is also to have the ordinances on the books that could attack it and address it in a fair and decent way. As I've always told people, we're not in the business of tearing houses down and kicking people out and basically sucking their dreams away. We want to give them hope by allowing them the opportunity to number one, fix their house up, or if you can't fix it up, okay, let's tear it down and let's put something on there that someone can move into. And and I just believe in 5 years, I pray that we can make a fundamental change and a difference where you'll see a difference in Franklin. We'll see a difference in Patterson, which we've already seen that with what Mayor Grogan has been doing. And I know you're doing some great things in Ville Platte with the developments that you're doing. That's why I'm so thankful that LHC has put together this type of conference to allow the stakeholders and the residents to interact, and we all interact and cross-reference and dialogue so that we could figure out best practices that we could utilize to change our cities. And, just be hopeful, and just know that as you put all of this together, LHC, and I thank God for Brother Morris, because he has been a beacon of light, because he's come down to Franklin on three different occasions, and he's about to come back again. And I know Mr. Rack has been on him, but at the same time, I think even if Mr. Rack wasn't around, he would still be coming, because he knows that there's a need in Franklin. And the municipalities, the rural municipalities, have been missing out on some unique opportunities to transform their communities, because everything has been going to, the larger metropolitan areas, New Orleans and Shreveport. They've been getting the lion's share of pretty much everything, and we need our piece of the pie as well. And we have hope. We feel like this is the true essence of people helping people, because what I did see at the meeting we had last Wednesday, I saw a sense of empowerment. I saw a sense of hope that the residents, in interacting after the presentation was over, they had Maurice and the two aides that was with him, his assistants, they were dialoguing with them, asking about the credit scores and, you know, the $35,000, you know, down payment forgiveness and that sort of thing. So we saw that there was very good interaction and everyone was willing to dialogue to make a fundamental difference to transform Franklin. Not only Franklin, but all of St. Mary Parish, because we called it the St. Mary Parish Symposium. It wasn't just for Franklin, it was held in Franklin, but it was for all of St. Mary Parish. And you know, we're trying to make a difference. So I just, if it does anything, just know that collaboration, the connections and everything else, it all works hand in hand. And, you know, reach out to the stakeholders and your citizens and get that dialogue, because they'll tell you in no uncertain terms how the cow is going to eat that cabbage. And you know, in the literal sense, because you have to know how to communicate with your citizens. You know, I'm proud to say that as mayor and the council that, you know, I serve with, we're all connected in some kind of unique way into the fiber of the community. You know, it's nothing for Mr. Rack to pick up the phone and hear, Gene, look, it could be a police matter. Look, I think such and such need to take a look at something that may be stewing that we need to kind of put a fire out on. You know, so that's how it works, you know. Ms. Doris White, who's like another mother to me, it's nothing for Ms. D to call me and give me some advice or say a prayer for me. That's how collaboration works. That's how you reach out in the community when you're touching people. So, you know, that's pretty much what I have on the connection part. And please work your blighted structures. Yes. Get it into LHC, you know, so that we could look at, so they can have Lamatts and whomever else to kind of start dialoguing, so they can look at some of the demographics of how some of this can come together.
I just want to add.
Yep.
I thought about one thing, and I'm gonna let Mayor Katrina continue. I'm sure Mayor Wyndham will want to have some comments. But as you can tell, my example was Franklin. I thought about one other thing. They brought some lenders from Patterson who were not a part of our program, and afterwards they were contacting us so they could be certified lenders. So we went to Franklin, but we're reaching out to neighboring communities to connect and bring people together. So if you think about Franklin, and I'm gonna just tell you this, they do work together, because when I set up a meeting with Brother Randall, I was on my way, and then I got a call from Brother Rack. He ain't got my number from Keith. He said, I'm gonna be there. So he's coming to check on me. And when he sent me down, of course, for the home buyers program, of course, he said, well, I'm gonna have Pastor Randall do the opening prayer. So that shows you a community that's connected. Because if I call one, I'm gonna meet it with one, the other one shows up.
That's true.
And the mayor, of course, has been there for all of them. I want to say one positive thing about two people here, which is the mayor. You know, a lot of times I'm talking to mayors, I might not be able to reach them, but Mayor Folkart is one mayor. Every time I call, if he's not available, he calls me back. And all I can tell you in the business world, for someone to have that kind of character means something. And then when I first met Brother Rack, I told him I don't talk that much. He doesn't talk that much either, but one thing I found, he's a very sincere, genuine guy. He says what he means. So when he called me, I'll never forget when I was driving. Yes, the question he asked me when I was going to meet with Pastor Randall. He said, Morris, is everything in order? And of course I said, yes. I'm glad it was. So I just want to tell you, these two gentlemen are doing a lot to support their community. Not only that, all the people that are from Franklin, but the good news is, we don't want it just to be Franklin.
That's right.
We want to come to Ville Platte and Keelan and continue this. But all I'm telling you so far, Franklin is a good example. And as you can tell, we had one meeting, but look how it has reached out and touched various areas. So let's commend all the folks in Franklin.
And that's another point I wanted to bring up when you talk about lenders. Before, you could not get banks to even talk to us, especially if it were dealing with poor people or less advantaged people or less fortunate people, because they didn't believe they were credit worthy, or they didn't believe they were house worthy. Now you have banks knocking on our doors to get involved because they know Louisiana Housing is involved and there's some money to be made. But of course, I had to ask them, where were y'all before? We've been trying to build houses for 30 years. My background is community action. I was with community action 30 years before I became mayor. So I know the living conditions. I know what people are going through trying to pay $500 rent when gas is seeping out of the house, and then the gas bill is $400 because the landlord doesn't want to get it fixed, and you got mamas working 2 or 3 jobs and kids coming home, no lights, no gas, and still got to do homework. That's what gets to me. And that's why it's worth fighting for, and that's why my mouth is so big at Louisiana Housing, because I'm sick and tired of seeing all of the money and all of the housing go to New Orleans, Lake Charles, Baton Rouge, the big cities, and they forget about the smaller cities like us, and the only times they remember us is when it's time to take a picture. You know, I said, we don't want to be in a photo op. We want our people in houses, not in pictures, you know. Then once they get in your house, then you can come take a picture of them being in the house. But don't just come take a picture. But we want you to know that all of this is available to you. No matter where you're from, just give Louisiana Housing a call. Help is on the way, y'all. It's here. We don't have to suffer no more. We don't have to have prayer meeting all night long. Praying. God has sent us Louisiana Housing, and you have people on this board who's been where you are. Before, the board was made up of people who were not from small cities, who didn't know each other like we all know each other. But now we're at the point, we have community action people on the board, we have community action partners, you know, that's here now. So you got people not only on the board, but on the board who cares about you and want to see you. They will not only travel to Franklin, they're going to travel to North Louisiana, Los Gris, Pine Gris, whatever the name it is, they will go. If there's a road can get them there, we will go. And if it's not a road, we're going to build some houses and make a road. So please, we want you to feel inclusive. Don't be ashamed. Once we shut up, we're going to let you ask your questions, and we want to make sure that you're going to have the information that you need. Don't be ashamed to call your mayors and your councils. No, see them in church, at the football game, in Walmart. They see me in Walmart. When I go to Walmart, it ends up a town meeting. I get nothing done. But that's okay. That's, said my grandfather, you better be glad they want to see you. It's when they don't want to see you, you're in trouble. You understand? Because this is about public service, and it's about serving the people. So right now, ma'am, we're going to let you see what you have to say about what you want to do in your city about your blighted properties and housing. You're going to stand up and make us all shake.
I wish I'd come first. You two are hard acting. The Lord blessed me with 3 opportunities to serve my fellow man. The director representing the 6th Congressional District for Louisiana Housing Corporation. A 6th time to be the mayor of my town. I've been town councilman 3 times, so I've spent my life doing that. I'm president of the board of directors for Quad Area Community Action Agency, and I guess I've had that job 12, 13 years. So I see it from 3 aspects. And I tell you what else I see. You can't build houses fast enough. Poverty is outgrowing us. There's a big separation in this country still yet today. It ain't like it was in 1969 when not everybody had opportunities. And my daddy goes in a community in Mississippi there in Sherman where the mother had 13 children. She's dead. The father stayed thirsty, if you get my meaning. My daddy, and these were people of color. My daddy brought that 12-year-old Robert Earl Simmons to our home, and my daddy raised them and educated them. The other 2 children went with older sisters. One of the programs was available back then. Right. Robert Earl was the oldest at the house, and wasn't nobody taking care of him when we went and got him. He was taking the walls, had no insulation. He was taping newspapers to the walls to try to keep the cold out.
That's right.
He spent so much time chopping wood that his hands were cracked and calluses, And still till this day, his hands are cracked and calloused. Robert Earl went on to become salutatorian or valedictorian of his high school. Got offered scholarships, decided to go to Alcorn. Finished there, top of the class, and president of the student body, many other honors. Got scholarships, went on to Ole Miss. And now he is a political consultant on the Gulf Coast. But I think about Robert Earl and that family and how many people were going through that. So what do you do when you cannot provide housing fast enough? You've got to sometimes make do with what you have. And God bless these people. The HUD has a program called Weatherization. The Louisiana Housing Corporation administers this program. And it's a wonderful program. I kind of got a little breakdown because everybody wonders, well, what do you got to do to qualify? Well, if your monthly household income is, if you've got one person there, your monthly household income's got to be less than $2,023. 2 people live there, less than $2,743. 3 people live there, less than $3,463. 4 people live there, less than $4,183. 5 people live there, less than $4,903. 6 people live there, less than $5,623. 7 people live there, less than $6,343. First thing across y'all's mind, a lot of people fit these categories.
Yeah,
Lots
absolutely.
and lots of people fit these
Yeah.
categories. Well, they go in there, now they don't do cosmetic or structural repair. What they do is they go in there and they make that house weather tight, and they measure how weather tight it is with a machine called a blower door, or they may use an infrared camera until they get it as tight as they want it. Because when I tell you there's people out there that their electric bill is taking 25 to 50% of their household income, I'm telling you something that y'all already know and you're already seeing. Ain't nothing worse than being so hot you drowning in your own sweat, or so cold you can't move. Can't get out from under the covers, you got so much on you. That's a wonderful, wonderful program. In the town that I'm the mayor of, when there's structure damage, we get the weatherization programs out there, get it done. But there's a group of us men who put up a little bit of money to buy the materials, and then we donate labor to repair those structures. So that's how we handle housing until something better comes along. Don't wait for something better to come along. I'm telling you, there's a reason there's a lot of homeless people out there too. I was starting my life after I got out of college in banking. I spent the first dozen years at a bank. And a lot of those programs weren't around in the 70s. But there is some 2 programs that are around that I've seen HUD come up with that just are wonderful programs. The first one being that first-time home buyer. You know, when you're young, you owe for everything you got. You paying rent, you paying 2 car notes if you both are working, and if you live in Louisiana, you got a boat note too. How in the world do you get a house? First-time home buyer.
Yeah.
They do 100% financing. The only thing you got to pay for is the closing cost. And it's a great tool to put people in new homes or used homes. It's a great tool for housing. And you know, what you got? And to top all it all off, because of that marital regime, these liabilities are borne onto you that stay there for about 20 years. So young people have a hard go getting a start. But before these programs came along, people struggled. Y'all remember they struggled to save money just to try to have a down payment, to try to attempt to buy a home. Let's talk about something else. You know, eventually, if we run a good race, our body's going to give out on us. We're going to lose our ability to make income. It happens. A reverse mortgage, another program that we administer. It's another HUD program. Reverse mortgage. You don't need credit, you don't need income, you don't need a house. And the older you are, the greater amount of equity dollars you can pull out of that house. They have a chart. If you're 70, it might be 60%. If you're 71, it might be 63%. That's not what it is. I'm just giving you an example. These are people. How many people get their homes paid for before they die? 1 out of 5. Maybe.
Yeah.
They die.
Mhm.
That many people die with unpaid homes. There's a lot of people, once they lose their ability to bring home household income, can't pay that note. And it's that reverse mortgage that has left those people in those homes. And it's that reverse mortgage that's kept those people. I hate to say this. How many old people you see working at McDonald's trying to pay a house note for electric bill?
Yeah.
Y'all get my
Yeah.
drift? Wonderful, wonderful program. And now in my 6th congressional district, I'm gonna talk about another program that's not funded by HUD, but it's something everybody needs to know about. It's funded by the Veterans Administration. Homeless veterans.
Yeah, that's a big
Homeless
problem, too.
veterans.
Yeah.
They paid a price. They wrote a blank check when they joined the service, and the payment on that check is their life. And let me tell you something. We've got a homeless veterans facility in my district. This is my executive director of it, Wallace Sibley. We've got the best practice in the nation for the several years now. 91% of our recipients within 2 years, you can get them healthy because they're going to have problems. They also get thirsty, have drug problems. They've lost all contact with their family. Family done gave up on them. We're getting them out from under bridges, living in the woods. Those homeless veterans, when they leave us, 91% of us have a job, an automobile, and a place to live. And here's how we do it. Our director, not only he's a doctor of theology, and he's a doctor of psychology, and he also is a veteran. And he's also my preacher.
Another preacher.
Good preacher. We love preachers.
Another preacher.
He's got, you can't get your world together till you get your life together.
Yes.
You got to take care of them physically. You got to take care of them mentally. Then you can unite them with family, and then you can get them a job. Workforce Commission in this state gives them top priority finding veterans jobs. That's right. So once we get them healed, we get them a job, and then we transport them to that job. They living with us in our veterans facility until they save up enough money to get a vehicle. And then they still live with us until they get a place to live. Now we also own 2 Section 8 housings?
5 accessible apartments.
We have 5 of them, the apartment buildings, and a lot of them end up in those apartment buildings when they leave us, but they are back functioning, contributing. Not only are they're doing something they ain't been able to do in a long time, they holding their head up high. Now, these are men.
Yeah.
I don't know what we got to do. I don't know what we got to do to open these facilities for women, but the government needs to get to work on it, because we got a lot of women veterans, which is a lot more complex because who normally has to rear the children? So it ain't like bringing a man. Now you're bringing a family.
Yeah,
It's a
that's right.
different deal. So we got a long ways to go with that yet. If you ever want to donate to the veterans, you can go to quadarea.org and then go to the veterans, Quad Vets, and you can donate online. All this money goes to the veterans, And I've said all I'm gonna say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
The
Mayor.
mayor would allow me, I want to transition, but I want to tell you a story before I do that. But as you guys can tell, I mean, all 3 of these mayors have shared some perspective, and they share from their heart. So we want other mayors to get involved and find out, things that the agency has access to. It's kind of a catch-22. It's an opportunity, but then at the same time, it's something that probably should be. But I like going around the state because, unfortunately, a lot of people around the state of Louisiana have no idea what Louisiana Housing Corporation is. When I first worked there as Louisiana Housing Finance Agency, I had worked in that city as a banker for over 15 years. I had never heard of the agency. So the good news is we had an opportunity to tell people, to sky's the limit. We have many more cities to cover. But I want to transition to our last speaker on the panel is to share some things. Because a lot of times to transform a community, you need some bigger expertise. So I spent about 10 years working with East Baton Rouge Parish Housing Authority, leading the nonprofit to do tax credit. When we talk about veterans, one thing the agency did at one time, a lot of the tax credit development had requirements that we had to have veteran housing within there. So if they had 60-something units, 4 of them had to be for veterans and so forth. So a number of things we've done. Anyway, so Dr. Mary Ellen, I forget his doctor. When I first started working with her, she was working with LSU. And a lot of people may not be aware, but the city of Baton Rouge got a choice neighborhood grant, planning grant, to basically plan to revitalize the community in Baton Rouge. So I worked with her, LSU and their team helped us to look at a community. We analyzed the community, talked about things that would make it happen, make it better. And really for a while, and that's how I got to know Mary Ellen. And you'll find out when she gets to speak, but she's one of the sweetest people you ever want to meet. But the good news is she has some very in-depth information, because to change the community, it's more than just an idea. Sometimes you need some expert knowledge. Clem can testify to this, because most of the developers, before they even go into an area, they do market studies. They want to find out, we may have an idea, like, we're going to work with Pastor Arm. He may have the idea Randall, he may have the idea that he wants to do elderly development, but sometimes you do market studies to find out if the population is there. Right. Now, in their case, we already know. Yeah. So the point I'm getting to sometimes, and Mary Ellen is going to share some information on some things you're going to have to look deeper for. And sometimes you have to bring in bigger experts, whether it's your university or some other organization that have brought the information. So I want to expand your mind a little bit, because sometimes it's more than just an idea. And Mary Ellen is going to share a little bit about, some things that she's learned. And LSU was very instrumental at the time she worked with their team. Because as we analyze this community, we learned the demographics of the community. We learned what the opportunities really were and what they weren't. We learned a lot about that community, because if you don't know that community, how can you change it or make it better? And one of the biggest things, and I'm gonna shut up, is HUD always requires for you to get the input. So really for over a year and a half, 2 years, we would have public meetings all the time to get input from the community. If you live in that community, you want to be able to tell them what you would like to have in that community. So HUD usually requires you to have that input. So anyway, long story short, I just wanted to give you an idea of Mary Ellen's expertise. She's now at the,
Arizona State University.
Arizona State University, but she comes back to Louisiana all the time. And so we added her to this presentation because I want to let her show you and demonstrate that you have to plan to get where you want to go. And she's fortunate enough to do that. And plus, she's just a good person. So I'm going to be quiet, just to give you a little bit about her background, because I know her personally. But I need you to catch this part, because sometimes we have great ideas. But sometimes you have to do some research, because your great idea may not be the right idea for this area or that area. And you may learn that there's a great opportunity in another phase of what you was thinking. But if you don't do that research and bring experts to analyze this data, you may not get where you want to go. So that's all I want to say. But anyway, I want to introduce Mary Ellen, and we're going to clap for her before, and y'all going to have to believe me. She is a wonderful, wonderful person. I want her to share her knowledge and expertise.
I'm not sure I can follow up with that introduction. Set the bar kind of high, Morris. But no, it was a pleasure to work. I'm a Louisiana homegrown girl, and now I'm a professor at Arizona State University. But while I was getting my doctorate here at LSU, it was really a joy to get to work with Morris and so many people in Baton Rouge. And he refers to me as an expert, but really, like, what I want to talk to you all about is that, yes, I have expertise, but so this resonates with what's already been shared here. There's expertise right here, the local government leadership. There's expertise, community members, residents. There's expertise, community partners, nonprofits, cross-sector partners, developers. Everybody brings that expertise to the table when we're planning for and implementing holistic revitalization, which is what's really critical when we're trying to build community, right? Because at the end of the day, I think the whole goal that we're trying to achieve here is to improve and allow opportunities for health and wellness and for people to achieve their full potential. And so it takes housing, it takes workforce development, it takes education, it takes all of these things working together. And so when we're able to get all that expertise in the room, that's when really we can see sustainable, impactful, meaningful transformation occur. And so as a university, person, scholar, I can partner with communities and kind of help facilitate some of that and look at data. But I think like doing these needs assessments, you're already doing that. You're already looking at data and using that to drive decisions. That really does help us know where do we plug in the resources that we have. Because we know they're scarce resources, right? And we're all trying to figure out how do we get the resources we need, how do we harness the align and leverage resources that already exist, and every community has assets. And so, part of when we talk about looking at needs a lot, but we also need to look at the strengths and the assets that exist in communities, because we can build on those, and assets are all right here in this room, right? And so I'm going to start. I'm not going to take up too much time because I know we've got questions. But just to emphasize why place matters, and I'm, again, the professor in me brings the slide, so I hope you'll bear with me. But why place matters, actually there's research that's been showing that our zip codes can tell more about our life expectancy, about our health and wellness than our genetic codes. And so, let that sink in. That's pretty powerful. Place matters, whether it's a neighborhood, a zip code, a parish, where you live really does determine a lot about your path toward health and wellness. And so it can very much influence that. So this is actually out of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, a map of life expectancy in New Orleans, and can shows you just within a few miles how the disparity there of how certain areas of New Orleans, there's 20 years difference in life expectancy. So I think that's really powerful, and you all know this, place matters, and that's why we want to improve place. So just a couple of kind of more grim statistics, and we'll talk about more hopeful stuff, but living in concentrated poverty often has dire implications for children. 86% of third graders that live in concentrated poverty read below grade level. Twice as many adults living in areas of concentrated poverty lack a high school diploma. And residents in these areas can experience 12 times greater rates of homicide. So this is really, again, just the statistics show how important it is that we address these issues. You talked about we're not building housing and projects, and we want to build communities. That's the goal, because it's so important to really build opportunities where we're not concentrating poverty, where we're really creating pathways to choice and opportunity for people to lead their full potential. And it matters that we address crime and workforce readiness and education and everything, and that people have access to all of that, because it's all connected to what we call the social determinants of health. So housing is that. These are all child development, your environment, the support services, all the different things that come together that impact and influence our health and well-being. Also, just another way to look at it is the ecological systems framework. So we think about risk and protective factors. I feel like I'm getting a little too academic right now, so I might going to just jump over this. But just wanted to show you how an individual, we really are all affected by our environment, our family system, our community, and society, right?
The mushroom effect, yes.
The mushroom effect. And so all these things we are affected by, and we affect the systems within which we operate. So this is what we want to see, though, is a thriving civic economy, a place where there's great housing, where people are connected, there's good transportation, there's good access to healthcare, educational opportunities. People are engaged and talking in order to create solutions that really create a thriving, vibrant community. So back to what Morris wanted me to share a little bit about. How do you plan for that? Well, like I said in the beginning, it takes cross-sector partners. It takes residents. It takes getting people around the table in the room, having conversations, because you all are the experts about what's going to work and what the needs are and what's not going to work in your community. And so what works in Baton Rouge isn't necessarily going to work in Ville Platte. Or, we have to think very specifically about the unique culture, the unique conditions, the unique needs of every area where we're trying to build community. And so this is just a little example of a cycle of how we might do planning process, where we spend some time with assessment and discovery, So where we're asking the questions about what needs to be improved for housing, what needs to be improved for health and wellness, what else are the needs that need to be improved on, then we plan, well, how are we gonna go about doing that? We reach out and make sure we're very inclusive. We want to have everybody's voice at the table as part of that process, because that creates buy-in too, right? And so you want, if you're going to do, how you want people to mow the lawns and take pride in their homes and their yards. And when you have pride and hope in your community, you know, that's where you've got the real power in your community. And so, and that's where people, they have hope, they achieve because they believe in themselves, they believe in the future, and so all things are possible. And that's what we want. And so it's super important that residents are part of the conversation, their voice is heard, and then and it leads to more sustainable solutions. And a lot of this too is about building capacity. It's, you know, you talked about the different programs that are offered and trainings and that LHC provides. Like, this is essential that Morris is going around doing all this education and awareness. This is hugely important, because if we build capacity, that's as important as a building, right? Like, we're really teaching people how to be self-sufficient, how to access resources, how to teach their neighbors how to access resources. So all that's really, really fundamental and important in the planning process. If you're doing kind of a whole planning for holistic transformation, you might actually go and develop specific strategies. You may look to evidence-based practices, but you may change and find things that or be innovative and just know this is something our community needs, and you can create a continuum of solutions and then go out and try those, test them, what works, what doesn't, and make changes as you need to. That's where university can help with that too, or if you have team partners that are researchers that can help kind of do the evaluation of, is this working, is it not, and how do we get back on track if we're not getting the impact that we hope to see. Policy and advocacy is a hugely important consideration too in this process, because sometimes policies don't work. You know, they're put in place for a purpose, but if they're not working or they're outdated, you know, we need to be able to revisit those, because those impact our ability to grow as well, right? So this is a cyclical process, and I just wanted to kind of share a little bit about that. Why does it matter that it's resident-centric? Because, and another thing, like, so I talk about, I'm a researcher, I study communities. I don't study communities, I study with communities. And I think it's really important to use that language. We're not doing things at people, you know, or for them, but again, I guess the capacity building, we're doing things with people. And I think that's really, really essential in this type of holistic revitalization and transformation. It's a strengths approach, an empowerment approach. Empowered residents in a community, they have an active voice, and they're able to grow. So I'm not going to go into this too far. I could do another presentation later if anybody needs it. But I just wanted to kind of share with you a couple of frameworks that that you can refer to. A consensus organizing framework is something that is a tool to engage community members and cross-sector partners and think about, everybody's got their own self-interest. How do we align and leverage those interests so that there's mutual shared interest and mutual self-interest there that leads to action? Because again, I know everybody in this room probably goes to meetings, and we want to have meetings that actually matter and action is taken and something can change and be improved as a result. And so this is one framework that kind of helps facilitate that. Collective impact, some of you may have heard of as well. This is another framework that's really about, like, how do we bring together cross-sector partners? These are the 5 key ingredients here. A common agenda, shared measurement, so we're sharing data with each other. We're not just holding it for my use, but I'm saying, you know, what I know about housing might impact your data about workforce, or if we look at it together, we might learn things in a bigger way about how we can really advance community. Mutually reinforcing activities, so that we're, again, aligned and leveraging our work so that we're going in the same direction, and we're building each other's capacity. A continuous communication, that is so essential to any sort of planning, any sort of a project that you're working on. You've got to have that really clear, transparent, continuous system for communication, and then backbone support. And that may be your mayor in the mayor's office. It could be a church, you know, it could be a religious institution, it could be a nonprofit partner, but you've got to have, or it could be a combination of these that come together and really provide that backbone support, that are there for the long haul, that are not going to just be part of this for a little while and then go away. And so these are just some things I wanted to share with you about how to build capacity. The last slide here that I'll share, though, with Morris, when we worked on the Choice Neighborhood Initiative here in Baton Rouge, this is one of my classes of Master of Social Work students that worked with community members and built these community chalkboards and put them, since we're in Baton Rouge, I thought, they put them out in Melrose East and Smiley Heights. And it was an asset kind of discovery. This makes my neighborhood good. This would make it better. They would put it out different times, different days of the week and different events, and have people come and just write, what their thoughts were. And so that was one way that we collected data to understand, like, what were some of the strengths of the community and what were some of the key things that we thought people wanted to see change. So that's just a little bit about this, but it's possible. And I'm so encouraged to see all of you together in this room and to hear the stories about the awesome leadership that you all have, and just really inspired by that. So.
That's great information, especially what she's saying. But before you all leave here, I want you to take down the number of Louisiana Housing.
Yeah.
It's 225-763-8700. What? And since we got a lot of preachers in here, the old church song, call them up. Tell them what you want. And somebody, he's on the main line, so LHC is there to help you. But another thing I want to emphasize to you, when we start these housing projects, and I'm so glad to see Larry Santamore in here, that's a community action veteran back there. But helping people, when those developers come to your city and your town and want to build houses, you make, excuse me, preachers, damn sure that they hire your local people.
Yeah.
Because this is a mushroom effect where not only building houses, they can build your community as far as economic development is concerned. Because we don't let them bring in just subcontractors from Mexico and Arizona or wherever. Because we got people in our own town. Y'all know Bub and them can do electric work, and y'all know Pork Chop know how to do plumbing. And so we got people in our own communities who can do the work. So you're not only going to be, that's right, you're not only going to be providing houses, but you're providing jobs. And when you provide jobs, you got money flowing in your community where you can do more things. So really, be practical. Go to the council meeting when you hear a developer is coming, and you demand that they hire maybe they might not be able to do all of them, but 75% of that workforce should be from people in your own community that can provide work for that. So do that, and that's what we're about. And you call the mayors and you call the council, and that's when I go crazy. That's when my sister called my pastor, because I got him on speed dial, poor thing. Like, she in there, she about to blow. You better come, because you're not gonna tell me you coming to build 55 apartments in Ville Platte and you're not hiring nobody from Ville Platte. Something is wrong with that. So you have a voice. This is your community, so don't be afraid to speak up and talk up about what you want your community to look like. Work with community action people, work with the mayors, work with the county. Y'all know you work with the preachers, and then put it in the prayer box on Sunday. We all got a prayer box. Mine's so bad, I got a prayer box for just me and nothing after Sunday. But have everybody involved, because it's a community effort, and there is strength in numbers, and we're better together. So you got now, y'all, if you didn't know what Louisiana Housing is, now you know. That's right. Now, when you know better, you should do better. So please use that number. Call LHC. Tell them what even if you said you might have your cousin and them who need a house. Call the number. See, can I talk to someone who can help my cousin get a house? Because I'm tired of hunting and 5 children in my house. Y'all got to get, but whatever it is you need, they can help you, because there's a plethora of programs and they care. This is definitely, I want to say, it's a corporation that cares about people and making it get. You got developers who care. You got Clem LaFleur developing. He's deacon in the church. You want to get it. If you can get a Christian developer, that's even better. Things go smoother. When you got people like Larry Santamore there, you got Holly that's working in North Louisiana. You got people who care about other people and people helping themselves, and that is what we're about. So we want to shut up and let you all ask questions ask us anything. We if we don't have the answer, we'll find the answer. Anybody got any
Hey,
questions that they need to know?
Only one thing I wanted to throw at you, Morris.
Yes, sir.
Earlier, it was stated about the closing costs that they would have to come up with. I thought with that first-time home buyers, that closing costs come out of that 35,000.
They do.
It does.
Okay, so I mean, I just wanted, because I know you said, and I knew better, but I said, let me make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a variety of programs, but one, it's up to 35,000, and another one, depending on the income, it's a percentage of the total amount of the loan. So
Right.
there's two different programs. So they do have some where, some down payment or some money is required and vice versa. But long story short, the main thing is a lot of working people don't have money saved.
Yeah, well, that's what my main thing.
And,
I would,
Right.
and they may qualify, and
Right.
honestly, we help bridge the gap by providing the down payment and closing costs through the program.
Right.
There's several programs, but at the end of the day, they provide down payment and closing costs. It's just a matter of how you measure, whether it's gonna be up to the 30, or it's gonna be the one that's a percentage of the,
Right.
closing costs. So yeah, you're correct.
Okay.
We do wanna take time to let you guys ask questions. I don't know if you're paying attention. But all three of these mayors were very passionate about what they did. Mary Ellen has provided some good information, so we wanna hear from you. Please ask questions like Mayor Virginia said, and then once we finish the questions, we'll wrap it up. So any questions?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can residents apply directly to LHC for housing assistance or homeownership programs?
Let me ask you a
Do
question.
they have to go through the local?
And the reason we did that is because, let me ask you. LAC is in Baton Rouge, but we service the entire state. So the smartest thing they ever did was, we want you to go through the local lender, and really it's two parts. The lender does the underwriting, and then they send it to us or add our program on for the down payment. But still, we need a lender to do the underwriting. And then, of course, a good underwriting or a good lender who knows about our program, if he has a client that doesn't have down payment assistance, what do you think they're gonna do? They're gonna say, hey, have you heard about LAC? Then they,
Right.
once they underwrite the loan, then they send it to us. We basically
Right.
do compliance to make sure it meets all the federal guidelines. So the answer to this question is, when I go out to the meetings like we went to Franklin, one of the main things I wanna do is when we leave, I don't want you to call me, I want you to call a lender, because we do it through qualified lenders. And the reason we do that is what? The lender is doing the mortgages. They're adding our product to it because they may need our product to close a loan. Because they have a person who qualifies but don't have a down payment. If they didn't have our product, what would they have to do to that customer? They have to tell them to
Yep.
wait or send them out of the door. So to show you the magnitude of that down payment and closing costs, do you know how many people that's like a miracle to?
Yes.
Yep.
To be able to do that. So anyway, hope I answered your question. So we do it through qualified lenders. Actually, a lot of our programs, and you gotta catch this, the reason we do it in the community is because we can't necessarily get all around the state. We do some of the weatherization programs through the local community action program. Because why? They know the people,
They know-
right?
and the
They
conditions.
basically just work with us. We give them money and do the compliance. So
And
if that
Lahib,
makes sense.
don't forget Lahib.
Yeah, Lahib.
And there's another situation here with lenders. Don't forget, you do have some power in your local community with your banks, because the banks are required through the Community Development Act. They have to do so much business helping the poor community or helping poor people get into houses. That's why now that they know about Louisiana housing, now they're knocking on our doors to get involved. So when you walk into your bank, ask them, I want to apply for a house, but if you can't help me, where do I go to Louisiana Housing? Are you connected to Louisiana Housing? So you do have some power, and that's the kind of information we want you to give to your citizens and your cousin in them and your aunt in them, and let them know that they can walk into a bank. Because a lot of the people that are less fortunate, poor work, they don't think it's even possible for them to walk into a bank and say, I want to see if I can qualify for a house. Yes, you can do that. That sounds familiar, y'all. Yes, you can. That was the good days. But say, yes, you can. And you tell them that. And preachers, you know, they're going to call on you to go with them. You know, y'all put on your communion church suit, you know, and they bring, and just go with them and help them, because that banker will not tell you that kind of information. You know, and ask them, what are you doing as a bank? Because your money's in that bank. The church money is in that bank. The city's money is in that bank. What are you doing for this community to help the poor people of the community? It's on the books. They have to do a certain amount of work to help poor communities to survive in that city. So call them on that point.
Do you have a list of lenders on your website or anywhere available?
We do.
So we can
We
On
do.
the website, they have a list
send
of the
people to buy
approved
market.
lenders.
Okay.
And the other thing is like what we learned when we went to Franklin, if you have a lender who is not and is interested, they just need to
That's
call us. We have a
That's
lady
right.
who goes all around the state and trains that bank how to use our product.
That's right.
So the list is on the website, but if that bank is not, and your people in your community are going, you might wanna ask them, why aren't you? And then we'll go out and train them.
Absolutely.
Okay? Yes,
And
sir.
the other thing I wanted to say is, if you don't qualify, we have programs to qualify
To help you qualify. Exactly. Yes.
It's no such thing as the door is closed.
Mm-hmm.
It's always another door we can do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we hold 3 times a month in Baton Rouge, a housing counseling. Basically, they go through everything. It's like 8 hours to train someone to be prepared to purchase a home. And I know Franklin's is fortunate that they have a community action agency that's qualified and certified to do the training. So if you can't get to Baton Rouge, you may want to ask some of the nonprofits in your community, why don't they get certified to do this training? Because sometimes we need to prepare people to go to the bank and be
First.
ready.
Right.
And believe me, knowledge is power. And
Yes.
I sit in the class, I've been a banker forever, and I sit in the class and learn something every time. And I just share with other people so they can prepare themselves.
We're
The
doing
one-
those classes in Iberia and Latvia also.
Oh, great, great.
The one in Franklin Community Action, I think, is 10 hours.
And that certificate that you get from that training helps with the points for you to get that mortgage.
Yes.
So that also helps. It's very important.